fucking piece of shit! Fuck this shit!
Yep, you read it right. I got banned from not one sportsbook, but 2 sportsbooks. And I'm going to tell you guys the strategy I used to bet to actually get banned, because the reason they gave me is that I won too much. So stay tuned. We'll talk all about that and everything that I did in order to kind of gain the advantage and the upper hand on the sportsbooks. So before we dive all into this, I'll give you guys a quick little background on how I kind of came across this bet, because before I came across this information, I was your typical bettor, just basically winning like 28 to 29% of the time, maybe 30 on a good year. And I was always losing, giving back 70% of my money to literally the sportsbook in Vegas. But as I got on TV and I became a TV personality, the show got popular, and so did I as a character. And so I was being introduced to a lot of more influential or affluential people that were high in sports, NBA players, NHL players, NFL players, MLB players, you name it. I met them all, not all of them, but I met a lot of players. And I was actually mind blown at what a lot of them would tell me. And of course, I'm not going to give out names, but the information and tips they gave me, I used to basically formulate a system that actually allowed me to get banned twice, Now, just so a lot of you know, this is not a permanent ban that I'm banned from these sportsbooks. It's a temporary ban from what I understand for 90 days, and they call it a cooling off period because I literally won too much. But coming across a lot of these sports players, what a lot of them would tell me was very concerning. And so I remember talking to an NBA player who was very, very, very household name. And again, question mark on that one because I'm not going to give the name. But I remember him telling me that a lot of games are fixed, but not in the way you think they are. I know we all know about Tim Donaghy and all those type of things where, referees fix games. Not saying that they still don't do it. Bad calls are made all the time, and we can always just chalk them off, as bettors and spectators are saying, "Oh, you just made a bad call."
An illegal screen or traveling every time down the floor in the NBA.
Right.
So it's not like you're going to be wrong if all of a sudden you start calling it.
Balls are dribbled out, when you need 1 point intentionally. Shots are held, the last 1 minute if you need 2 points. I mean, this is something that's very common. And so Vegas, just so you guys know, Vegas favors the under whether you know it or not. This comes from the horse's mouth. I've been told this from several different players that were involved with sports, is that Vegas loves the under. They favor it. And so I know as a bettor, we like the over because we feel a couple different things. We feel that number one, the over is always going to be a more profitable bet because if it goes overtime, you got a guaranteed way that way. If they just start shooting really well, you got a guaranteed way that way. I mean, so all these different things factor in. In reality, what really is going to work in the strategy I'm going to show you guys is quite a bit different than what you're thinking. Food for thought too, just before we jump into the whole strategy. Stop betting parlays. They don't work. Trust me when I say this. Parlays are the biggest sucker bet that you could ever enter into. It's like a carnival game. If I were to give you a quarter and I told you to flip that quarter once, to flip it on heads, and if you give me 100, I'll give. If I put 100 up and you'll give me another 100 back if I get the heads, that's an okay bet. That's a straight bet. But if I said to you, look, I'll give you a quarter. Here's flip it for me 4 times. If it goes on heads, your $100 bet, I'll give you 1,000. You wouldn't take that bet. It's a stupid bet because you know the reality of you hitting it 4 times is slim to none. I mean, not to say it couldn't happen, and it does happen, but it's not often. So the reality is that trying to flip a quarter 4 times, even 3 times, is awfully difficult as opposed to doing it 1 time. So that's basically a parlay, and think about it this way. Parlays are even more of a sucker bet because you can actually push that bet and it just gets removed from your parlay, and now your 14 parlay becomes a 3-team parlay, and guess what? You make a lot less money now. So with that all being said, let's just jump right into this whole thing on what I kind of developed and what actually helped me. So we know now that parlays is the dumbest thing you can do. So stop doing those if you're doing those. I know they're enticing. I get it. As a degenerate bettor at one point before I kind of did all this, before I got suspended because I won too much, parlays were enticing because if you were down $2,000, you just figured you throw $100 on 4 games, you could get it all back. Vegas knows that. Okay, they're not about to pay $800,000 in parlays, because they're charitable giving money away, or even 800 million, because obviously a 14 parlay times thousands of people is going to be a lot of money for Vegas to throw away. Now, straight bets is the way to go. Obviously, I'm telling you not to do parlays, but So with straight bets, it's not what you're thinking though. You're not just looking at a team saying, oh, I like this team, I did the research, it's going to win. Most of the time, I tell anybody this, try to stay away from taking teams or even points. Points get shaved all the time. And again, comes from the horse's mouth. Big points get shaved all the time. So here's a good example. Let's say the Celtics are favored by 14.5, right? And, they're playing a decent team. Let's say they're playing the Knicks. And for whatever reason, there's a couple players out, so they kind of have a skim roster. And you're thinking there's no way they can't cover 14.5 on home court. The reality is that they're, in reality, yeah, in the real world with no adverse, effect, they could cover it. But again, remember, is that coaches, it's not the players that get involved with this. Coaches will typically, if they're ahead by 14, all of a sudden you'll see the players get pushed in. So how many times is it better? Have you seen a roster get shifted around where all of a sudden these guys look like something out of the worst college team that you've ever seen in your life? They can't shoot, they can't dribble, they throw the ball away, they can't assist, they can't rebound, they can do nothing. And that's not on accident, okay? I mean, you're actually thinking to yourself, how is it even possible that a team would even give these guys a contract to be on the team when they can't even literally make 1 out of 10 shots? There's a reason for that. Every team has that B squad, and not even the bench squad, the B squad. Because these are literally the ones that were willing to basically take the most minimal amount of contract pay. These are not even like G Leaguers. These are like the lowest that there is. And when I was told, because this is coming from NBA players, is that they're there for a reason. They're there basically as bodies. They know they can't shoot, they know they can't throw, they know they can't pass, they know they can't assist, they can do none of this. And the reason why they're actually still a fixture on that team is because in the event the team is up by 25, 30 points with 7 minutes left, at that point most teams will throw that squad in and basically just run out the clock, because all they know how to do is defend and basically hold on to the ball, and that's it. They're taught to do nothing else. So they're not out there every day shooting free throws and all that good stuff. But anyway, without going too much longer into that, let's jump now about the strategy. So most people obviously now use an app of sorts, whether it be FanDuel, William Hill, most casinos around Vegas have their own app in which you can utilize to actually go on there and do odds on demand. And so we call those in-play odds. And so as a result of the in-play odds, what you want to do is you want to look for a couple different things. Now we're going to be addressing basketball today just because it's the in-season sport. You want to look at basketball and you want to take the in-play odd at halftime. So let's say halftime is 39-39, which we know is 78, right? And so obviously if you double that, it's 156. And so there is a lot of math involved here because math plays a big, huge role in your betting process. But let's say Vegas takes that game and says, okay, it's 79 total points combined right now at the first half for college, and the over-under they throw at you is 167. You're going to really want to rethink that bet. And the reason why is right now, 71% of coaches are coaching a lot differently than they did 20 years ago. So 71% of coaches right now are telling their teams to go out there and defend instead of offend like they did in the first half. And so now all of a sudden, now you have a team that's just doing nothing but defending. You don't have to worry about that team missing shots or just not being able to take shots or running out the shot clock and all that stuff. So that's 78 now. Let's dwindle that down to a realistic number. Let's go to 145 for an over-under. So now we know to take the under on that game, because typically right now Vegas, as I've noticed, and this is again one of the things I've been doing, one of the things I've been noticing tremendously is Vegas is basically taking what should be over-under and inflating it by about 7 or 8 points of college, which actually works to your advantage as a bettor. So you want to take the under in that game. But let's say you get a rarity where you got a game with Bellarmine against, a High Point, right? And right now they're killing it. They're at 48-50 at halftime. The first thing you're thinking is that's almost 200 combined, if we go all the way. But they throw you an over-under of 178. You're going to want to take that. And the reason why is these are not major big schools that get too involved in that. Nobody's picking up a backdoor phone saying, hey, coach, we want that game to go under, and make sure that they defend and don't shoot the ball. That's probably not happening in those games. But take a look at the colleges you're betting. Take a really good look at their past record in terms of, are they notorious to foul at the end of the game? We'll go into all that in a moment also. But take a really good look at, typically, does the coach go out in the first half and do nothing but offense, and in the second half he does nothing but defense? Like I said, the majority of coaches right now, 7 out of 10 are doing that. So again, do not get fooled. Do not get pulled into betting on a game that's got this this enticing over-under when you look and you go, geez, they scored 80 points in the first half. They're heating up and they're going to start shooting like crazy. 1 out of 10 times that'll happen. 9 out of 10 it won't. 9 out of 10 you'll see them doing nothing but defend, throw their arms up in the air. I almost call it spaz ball at that point because all they're doing is jumping up and down, like it's like literally trying to like shoot over a brick wall. And so maybe 1 or 2 of the shots out of 10 will go, but the other ones just bounce off the rim. Another thing you want to look for too, and this is something you're never going to hear on any other channel. It's only because I've been told this from, again, the horse's mouth. But take a good look at the way the ball is bouncing. In other words, keep an eye on the ball when you see the dribble. You'll notice a lot of times when the ball's been a little bit overinflated, okay, in that second half, that you may have a hard time covering that as well. And so obviously there we go back to the under again, because the balls, believe it or not, there are certain refs out there that actually overinflate balls because the word has been put out. And I have no reason to dispute Tim Donaghy on this one either, but my understanding is there's a lot of refs out there that will actually overinflate balls because we know what happens with an overinflated ball. It basically bounces off the rim and generally goes to the outside and not the inside. And so obviously, unless it's going pure net, that ball's not going in. I mean, you know and I know that. So now all of a sudden, what would have went in now takes off 20 points off that over-under because that ball's been overinflated. And again, a lot of it's a tally of sorts. In other words, you'll never know to a certain degree on how many people have the over and how many people have the under. But there is somebody that does, and obviously now that they know a certain way that game should go, you got to be careful of that as well. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to dig too deep in that, but it does happen. Not all the time, but it does happen every now and then. But so strategy-wise, what you want to look for is, like I said, halftime odds. Take a really good look at the combined score. Double that, but then also take a very good look and realize, does this coach defend typically? Does this team defend? Because remember, it's not the players doing it. The players are doing what the coach tells them to do. So if this is not a coach that typically defends, at the second half, he just goes all balls out and basically shoots, you're going to want to take that double over. Okay, and it's just a straight bet, nothing more, nothing less. Take the negative 115, put your money up, and just collect your negative 115 odds. Okay, then you also want to look at a couple other things as well. Also too is that we'll talk about NBA in a moment, but also to look at the fact of once you win that game, bank half the money, take the next half, and go look for the next game. Don't ever be so eager to bet every game, because there's going to be certain teams where you do this enough times that you start to know so well that you know exactly what's going to happen in the second half. I can predict a lot of times, what UCLA is going to do. I can predict a lot of times what USC is going to do. And I mean, you got teams like USC, you got Bronny James on there, and again, I mean, I've seen games where he's just not there. The coach just having to defend and not even shoot. So, keep that in mind. I mean, you'll learn all this, as you go, and a lot of this is elementary for a lot of you guys. But, the key to winning at sports, and it's just so simple, is just knowing math, sitting down, doing halftime odds, okay? Straight bet, no parlay, and the bottom line is just taking that money, bank it, roll over, and do it again. And so, for the most part, if you win 7 out of 10, you're well ahead of the game. The problem with me was the amount I was betting in order to get to the point of getting banned. I wasn't betting 25 or 50 bucks. I was doing a lot more than that because I just knew what to bet. And at the point I got banned, I think I was actually like 80-something%, believe it or not. And that was for like a month straight. So, and it wasn't by one, it was like 2, like I said. So now let's also go back into the fact of college basketball too, is we look at the foul rate. You want to look at how good the free throw shooters are. Remember, in college basketball, okay, it's a totally different game than the NBA. And the reason why is that these kids cannot hit free throws for the most part. They're usually shooting like 38%. There are teams that shoot a lot higher than that. For most teams, they're shooting like 3 out of 10, maybe 4 out of 10 on a good day. And so if you get down to the wire, right, and you're over under and you really just need 2 free throws, you better not hope that's the only thing saving you, because most of these kids can't hit 2 free throws. They're usually good for 1 out of 2, maybe. Most of the time they miss both. And remember, in the bonus in college, it's, the first one's got to be made until they're double bonus, or that second shot doesn't even get an attempt. So keep that in mind too. You want to take a look at the totality of that too. So when we talk about it, so we're going into obviously doing a quick research on it. This can all be found on ESPN.com by simply going to the players on that team on the roster and just doing a quick skim of them. See what they shot for points the last game. See what their foul rate is. See if they, how quick they get into the bonus and that sort of thing. So when you add all that in together, you pretty much can't do anything but not succeed. So hope that makes sense on that. Now let's jump into the NBA, because I know a lot of people love betting the NBA, and so do I. The NBA is a bit of a different animal. Why? Because players can actually shoot free throws, players can actually make three-pointers, and players can actually drive the score up to 270, 300. Hell, I mean, I think about 3 weeks ago we had a score go well over 300. So they're good at what they do, but they can also be bad at what they do. And what I mean by that is that if a coach wants them to defend, they're not going to be shooting that ball. And you'll notice this sometimes, and this is why you watch a lot of these videos where people are breaking their TVs, because typically a legit player or a legit team, I should say, is not sitting there shooting, making half the shots and then going back and shooting. But then all of a sudden you'll notice that the player out of the blue now all of a sudden wants to dribble the ball. James Harden's notorious for it. How many times you watch Harden come up to the half point and then get mid-court and then get to the defenseman and he starts dribbling the ball for 15 seconds. Now, if you're over better on that game, the first thing you're saying to yourself is son of a because this guy's killing 15 seconds off your clock every single time. And every time he kills 15 seconds off, that's a shot right there. So you're losing points that way. Typically, Harden doesn't care about your bet either, but in reality, it doesn't make very good sense. I mean, his style of shooting rather, is a little unorthodox because I don't know why he takes 15 to 20 seconds, but I mean, obviously I can assume what I want, but again, I would just be going to something else and another tangent. But so with NBA though, we got good free throws, we got good 3-point shots. Simplest math formula you ever find. And again, this applies to NBA specifically. In play, halftime, double that number. If they're willing to give you double that number, nothing higher, take it and run. Very rarely will it not come in at that. In fact, I've done the math in this. It's 2 out of 10 times that it doesn't come in. 8 out of 10 times it will. So let's give an example here. Let's say the Celtics are playing the Grizzlies. The score right now at halftime is 68 to 61. All right, we know combined that's 129. And let's say Vegas throws 258 at you. Take it and run. Okay. Because the reality is that it's going to hit that. But most of the time, Vegas is actually quite generous. They'll actually throw you a lower over/under in the NBA games. So you actually can get what I call a discount. It's actually a really, really good opportunity to really kill it on that. But don't, like I say, don't be too confident in the fact that you're willing to bet the house and the farm on it. Just be a modest gambler. I mean, just do $100 bets, $50 bets, $25 bets. What you're comfortable betting, what you can afford to lose. Okay. And just take that bankroll, keep flipping it over. So, like I said before, it's almost like a slot machine, okay? Is that if you put $100 into a slot machine, be the slot machine. So, in other words, if you're the slot machine and every time you do a bet or somebody puts money into you, you're going to take 90% of that, right? But if they keep taking, you're going to eventually take more back than they're going to take back from you. That's the reality. So, I have a lot more insight on NFL and that sort of thing, so I'll be doing a lot more videos on that as well. But I'm hoping I can break this down for everybody if this makes sense. And so we'll recap. Basically, we got straight bets, we got halftime odds, and we got simply, use math, use research, nothing more, nothing less. Stop doing parlays, stop doing exotics, stop doing all these crazy things because in the long run you'll lose money. I'm not saying there's not some guy out there that can't show me an 11-team parlay ticket he won out of the blue. I mean, but there's also people that win the lottery every now and then. Doesn't mean you're going to win it or I'm going to win it. It's just the reality. You're going against the odds doing it that way. It's a sucker bet. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Thanks. Bye.